One of the worst teams in the Western Conference are the Houston Rockets, but they have been one of the better teams in the West the last couple of years with James Harden. The Houston Rockets are now on a 20-game losing streak. Most of that has been without Christian Wood, so let's be fair. But let's also call it how we see it. 17 of those 20 losses have been by double digits. And they face Toronto tonight. So by the time this episode is over with, the Rockets could have either won their first game in the last 20 games or they could be on a 21-game losing streak. Surprisingly, even though the Rockets have been horrendously bad so far, they are not the worst team in the NBA. It's still the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're ahead of them by like a game. So it's not like a huge disparity. But that just goes to show how bad the Timberwolves have been. And I don't even think it's the talent. Because, I mean, even without Christian Wood, the Rockets have Eric Gordon, John Wall, Christian Wood. Christian Wood has been out. Victor Oladipo, Daniel House, Jayshawn Tate, and they just got Kevin Porter Jr. I don't think it's the talent. I mean, is Steven Silas a bad coach? I know it's way too early to ask that question, but is it? I'm not really sure. Is it really too early to ask that question? I mean, I don't think you can be a good coach in the NBA and lose 20 games, like 20 straight games. If you go on a 20-game losing streak, how can you be a good coach? You could at least pull one game out in a 20-game span, like at least one game. At least one game, but to go on a 20-game losing streak, and then after his 20th loss, I saw the press conference for Steven Silas, and the entire time, his head was down, his hand was on the top of his head, and I'm like, that doesn't look like a leader to me. Even though you lost 20 in a row, your body language, it shows like you quit on your team. It shows like you don't care. I don't think it's too early to ask if Steven Silas is a bad coach. He probably is. But I want to get into something even deeper than that. Isn't this the perfect time for the Rockets to be bad? Think about it. I think now is the perfect time for the Rockets to suck. This franchise has made the playoffs for 8 straight years due to James Harden. The minute James Harden gets traded, they get a boatload of first-round picks back. And their first-round pick this year, the past years with James Harden, the Rockets have been trading first-round picks left and right. Luckily, the first-round pick that they traded to OKC for Russell Westbrook, that is this year's first-round pick, is top 4 protected. So it's not unprotected. And I always say, I'd rather be horrible than stuck in the middle. Let's just look at some recent examples. The early 2010s Atlanta Hawks teams, they were always a playoff lock, but we always knew they weren't going to go anywhere. The Indiana Pacers now, we know they're good, but they're not going to go anywhere. The Orlando Magic right now, they made the playoffs the last 2 years, and now they're really bad because they didn't trade Nikola Vucevic earlier, and they still are hesitant to trade him now. The 76ers realized, maybe it is better to be horrible than to be in the middle of the pack. And because of that, Sam Hinkie tanked. They adopted the slogan, trust the process. And they got Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and a bunch of other draft whiffs among them. But they got their core of players in Simmons and Embiid. Because the Rockets are so bad, they have the second best odds to land the number 1 pick this season. But like I said, if it drops out the top 4, then that pick is OKC's pick. If the Rockets get a top 4 pick, let's not even talk about number 1. They'd have a chance to draft Cade Cunningham, Jalen Suggs, Jonathan Kuminga, Evan Mobley, Jalen Green. Cade Cunningham probably won't be there, probably not Jalen Suggs, but they'd have options. I mean, Kuminga, Mobley, and Jalen Green. Like, this is a good year to be picking in the top 5 with Cunningham, Suggs, Kuminga, Mobley, and Green. If you're picking in the top 5, you're going to get a really good player. For the Rockets, they hope it's top 4 because they can't slip out the top 4. When you take into account all the talent that the Rockets already have on the roster, like Christian Wood, Kevin Porter Jr., Jayshawn Tate, Eric Gordon's under contract for next year. So is John Wall. So is Daniel House. Imagine a team of Cade Cunningham, Christian Wood, KPJ, John Wall, Eric Gordon, Daniel House. I think that's a competitive team. And when you take that into account with all the first-round picks they have moving forward because of the James Harden trade, the Rockets have a lot to work with. And luckily for them, this won't be a long rebuild if they get this top pick. If I was a Rockets fan, I would want to continue losing, because what's the point of winning? If you win, you don't even have a first-round pick in a loaded draft class. Everybody thought the Rockets were going to be a middle-of-the-pack team. So did I. I mean, they went on a 5-game winning streak when Harden first got traded. That went downhill. That went downhill quick. And then they went on this 20-game losing streak. So although I wasn't expecting this from the Houston Rockets, like, it is the perfect scenario. You just lost your franchise player in James Harden, and you're about to get a new one. Potentially in Cade Cunningham, Kuminga, Suggs, Mobley, or whoever else, or Jalen Green. So I would say Houston Rockets, keep on tanking. Keep on taking. Trade Victor Oladipo for nothing. Don't ask for too much. Trade anybody. Just keep on tanking. Continue losing. If I was a Rockets fan, that is what I would want. And that is the best case scenario for the Houston Rockets organization moving forward. So they should keep losing. And I hope they do become good sooner rather than later. I love Houston. I love the Houston Rockets. Although I don't like their current uniforms, I still like them as a team. So, yep, keep on losing. The tank is on, and it should be on. You can't let that pick go past top 4. Hopefully they figure it out.